The backrooms is a concept that has exploded in popularity recently, but I haven't necessarily been the biggest fan of some fan interpretation. Don't get me wrong, I love the Kane Pixels series, and there have been some seriously good games made, but I tend to dislike a lot of what I'd call over-explanation of the backrooms by fans treating this like it's basically SCP 2.0. Like, no, I don't really care about what sub-level this is or what class entity we're escaping. I more care about the dread, the true feeling of helplessness, and the sense that this environment around you is larger than you can possibly imagine. That's what's appealing to me about the backrooms concept, not the classification of it by fans who tend to take this concept just a little bit too far into SCP land, in my opinion. So when I first played Apeirophobia, I was a little turned off and intimidated by the fact that every single level had a different monster that you had to know how to fight, and that you were forced to delve headfirst into established quote-unquote lore of the concept. But Apeirophobia surprised me though how seamless it was able to adapt those backrooms elements into a commonly enjoyable game. Join me, because today we'll be looking at Apeirophobia, the perfect adaptation. Hey everyone, this is just a reminder to follow my Twitch and— whoa! Well, I don't know how I got stuck down here in this place, but I might as well continue the review while I'm stuck here. I don't know, maybe I'll clip back up through the top? Anyways, my criteria, as always, are aesthetic, story, gameplay, and overall. When looking at this game, I wanted to— Okay, that's probably enough explanation. Let's get into the review. Aesthetic. The intro and first level of this game are clearly inspired by the Backroom series by Kane Pixels. It has the same opening, and the monsters in that level resemble the monsters in the shorts. However, while I'd normally decry a sense of unoriginality, I think the reference works in this game because it feels much more like an homage rather than a copy. It comes off as a tribute to Kane instead of stealing from Kane, which I really appreciate. It also helps that this intro and the first level are the only levels to really do this from the series, and it works as well because most people are already familiar with that series, so starting them off on something somewhat familiar is a good choice design-wise. Now, I must say that for the rest of the game, picking an aesthetic to talk about is hard because there are just so many. For what it's worth, I think nearly every one of the 16 current levels have amazing aesthetics, befitting of the main Backroom's core idea, that of infinite spaces. I also quite like how sometimes the game has absolutely no sound for ambience or footsteps at all. That is, until a monster finds you and you hear it walking and your heartbeat quickening. The lack of sound is a really easy design choice that makes the game immediately scarier, and honestly I found that audio void more scary than some of the monsters, which admittedly can come off as rather silly other than scary. But when the monsters work, oh boy do they work. This game has so many levels, it would be impossible to go over them all, but I'll list a few that I really did enjoy. I'm a fan of the pool rooms one with the giant beast, the party goers level, the massive chase level, and the boat level. Those were just my personal favorites, but some of the levels definitely didn't work for me as well. I didn't quite like the parking lot level or level 16 because god dang is it far too dark to see anything down here. Honestly, as far as aesthetic goes, you're bound to find some levels that you really like and some levels that don't stick with you as much, and that's okay. This game has a massive variety to choose from, that's what matters, because no matter what, this game has something for everyone. The one other choice I have to highlight before we go is the camera system, which I found to be an amazing touch, but I wish it was required more. You only need the camera on one level, the partygoers level, in order to see the partygoers, but man is that level a really good one. I just wish the camera had more uses, and maybe it will in future levels. Story. This game has no story. I mean, to be fair, it has more story than Doors did, but that's not a high bar. The intro cutscene, like I said, is just the beginning of the Kane Pixels Backroom series, and that's basically all the story we get. Although there are a few books that you can find in a single level that contain some lore and explanation of the monsters. That's quite a nice touch, and I like how our characters do indeed talk throughout the game, mostly in cutscenes in between levels, but still, I always like hearing the thoughts of our characters. So yeah, I guess this game does have some sprinkles of story elements, but honestly that's all that's needed. I mean, it's the Backrooms. The entire point of the genre is emptiness and nothingness. I don't need a super complicated story. The only Backrooms game I can really think of that has a really good, really deep story is the 1980 whatever one with the baby monster and the mic detection. But as far as Apeirophobia goes, it's Roblox Backrooms. I don't need a super deep story or any extra spicy fried chicken for this game. Also, there's no ending. You just reach the end of level 16 and the game ends. Very anticlimactic for all the trouble we go through. Gameplay. The gameplay is fairly simple as far as controls go, just your standard controls, plus a whistle button and a button to take out your camera. I do wish the game used these two functions more. Camera is only needed once in the game, like we said, and the whistle is entirely optional, and also kind of a bad idea since it draws the monster towards you. Oh, jeez. Oh! Hellaman! Oh my god! He's gonna kill us all! Go, 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 go. I'm out of stamina! Hellaman! Hellaman! I'm out of stamina! You bitch! You left me! Other than that, it's a very simple click-to-interact system. I really do like this game, though, as I alluded to in the intro, because of its variety. This game has 16 levels, and they could have made every single one of them just glorified chase mazes, but there are so many different types of levels that merge those Backrooms quote-unquote lore elements that I tend to dislike with more classic horror themes and gameplay to create a very accessible adaptation. This game has chase mazes that have a simple exit. Sometimes they sprinkle in objectives to do, sometimes it's a stealth game, sometimes it's a puzzle, sometimes it's boating away from a giant, and sometimes it's even a parkour obby. No matter what happens, the game keeps itself fresh and interesting through unique levels and gameplay obstacles, and because of that, this game manages to stay engaging throughout each of the levels. And another thing I'll say about this is that I like how the game lets you start on any level of the 16 that you want. It makes it very easy to just restart when you run out of lives or have to quit for the day and want to pick up back later. I think this game would be annoying as hell if you had to play through the entirety of the game for just another shot at level 16. However, this brings me to a slight point of contention here, and it's limited lives. I'm just going to put this out here, I hate limited lives in horror games. And this isn't about just this game in particular. I hate all games that feature limited lives. It's just a cheap way to make a game artificially more difficult and longer without having to put any real thought behind it at all. I should be scared of your atmosphere or monster, not your crappy live system. With that rant over, this game's limited lives isn't that bad because again, you can just start on any level you want to, but at that point, why even have limited lives at all if you're just going to let me restart wherever I want? It just seems kind of pointless, and again, a cheap attempt at extending playtime and difficulty. Additionally, although a good amount of levels are unique and fun in this game, there are more than a few stinkers, and that detracts from the overall experience. To be honest, the mazes in this game are far too big, and I understand that that's kind of the point, but for most of the mazes, they're so big that you rarely ever see the monster, if there even is a monster on that level. I'm mostly thinking about the pool rooms level, the second pool rooms level, not the first pool rooms level, and the cave level when I say this. As cool as the monster from the cave level is, I only ran into him one time because of how big the map was, and to be perfectly honest, a maze without a monster is just boring and unfun. There were also some levels that felt slightly unfair, like the parking lot map, which felt like the monsters knew I was hiding in the lockers and then proceeded to puppy guard them until I left. Also, the last level is definitely a stinker, which sucks because I would have loved a great level for the climax of this game. But unfortunately, I never saw the monster on this map even once, and I just spent the entire time wandering around being frustrated that I literally couldn't see anything in the dark areas of the map, but knowing I had to go through them anyways. It sucked. Overall, this game is very hit or miss when it comes to the different levels. You'll probably either really like them or really dislike them. But the good part is that the game mostly has levels I think you'll like, and only rarely has a real stinker. Overall, this game is a great adaptation of Backrooms material. It takes the modern and well understood and accepted Kane Pixel's backroom concept and merges it with the deeper, more complicated Backrooms lore, where you reach the deeper stuff the more levels you progress. It all feels very accessible that way, and even though some levels are a slog to go through, most of them are either tense or interesting enough to be worth your time. I rank games on a scale from 1 to 10, with a 1 being stay away, 5 being neutral, and a 10 being perfect. Apeirophobia, and yeah, just in case you're wondering, it is misspelled every single instance of it in the script. What even is that word, honestly? Apeirophobia is a great adaptation of Backrooms material that has great atmosphere and some really memorable levels, but has a very lacking story and some real stinker levels sprinkled in. With all of this in mind, I rank Apeirophobia a 7.5 out of 10. I've been RisterMice, and thank you very much for watching my video on Apeirophobia.